Ferguson. Albert skorar! Albert Gunnarsson hefur skorað. Ragnar Ferguson og skoðaðar. Glæsilega. Óskar Ragnar á móti Bjarna. Og Bjarni með góða sendingu fyrir og það aftur í Gunnarsson.
Hello and welcome back to the Besta Pod ever. We're coming at you absolutely not live from round 12 and partially 13. I'm joined, as always, first of all, I'm Ragnar, joined as always by...
I'm Tryggvi.
And we are here to discuss, so let us discuss.
Fun round. We talked about how it would be crucial. There's a lot of crucial games. People fighting sort of the top three had difficult games. The middle to bottom three all had games against kind of each other. Mm-hmm. So it was a fun round. And then a little bonus match last night for Víkingur Fram.
Yeah. And a couple of upsets, sort of. Two upsets.
Kind of, yeah.
Two noteworthy upsets. Maybe we should start there. FH Breiðablik. FH beat them 1-0 to sort of close the gap a little bit on the top, putting them at 20 points and keeping Breiðablik a little bit from Víkingur, leaving them on just 26 points in second place.
It seems like every time I talk bad about Breiðablik and thinking, no, they're not ready for this title challenge, they win 3 on the trot and almost close in on Víkingur, and then when we talk good about them, they do the other thing. I think it maybe we can take a quick look at them a little bit, how they've been playing, because there's been a bit of a change. Halldór took over from Óskar Hrafn, technically at the end of last season in the last few European games, but essentially he's gotten this season as the head coach, this in the league. And there's a bit of a change in the way they're playing. It was an interesting style of football that Óskar was playing. They adapted a bit to the opponents, but they were very much playing their own type of football. Even when me and you went to see them against FC Copenhagen, an objectively a better team, they played their style of football and conceded goals, but they also scored goals. They just all out, very direct. Some long balls, but still a bit of trying to pass the ball around. This season, they're trying to move a bit towards the Víkingur approach. It seems like trying to be a bit more direct, but it means that they're keeping the ball maybe for a bit longer, meaning that some of their players are getting higher passing stats. But sometimes, like against FO, for example, it means that if teams sit back against them and are able to defend these attacks, they're a little bit blunt, and we saw it a little bit earlier in the season before Ísak Snær had that run of form that he had where he assisted and scored in a few games before he got injured again. He was a real boost in the sense that they finally had someone who they could play up to a long ball, big and strong guy who he could lay it off to Jason Tadi or someone else or score the goal himself. Became a bit of a focal point, and I think that's maybe where they're lacking a little bit. They're trying these long balls, and Benjamin Stokke was supposed to be that player. The great goal-scoring record in Scandinavia hasn't really translated yet to the Besta Deildin. They're trying to be Víkingur without having the tools of Víkingur, who have the versatility of having Nikolaj Hansen and Helgi Guðjóns, two strikers that can come in and score, whether they played the entire game or whether they only get 10 minutes. That's maybe where Breiðablik is lacking a little bit.
So do you think it's a talent issue or do you think it's a coaching issue?
It's a talent issue in the sense of I think they're missing the pieces. I think they thought that Stokke would be that Nikolaj Hansen piece, and then they could play this sort of football. I think, again, I don't want to throw him under the bus. He's clearly not a bad player. It's maybe it's this sort of football doesn't quite suit him. Maybe he hasn't quite settled into the team, into the league. I think they need a bit of a plan B, it seems like, because they're winning games, or at least from my opinion, they're sort of winning games either when this sort of stuff works, when you have Ísak Snær or Stokke coming into a game, where they play really well, or you win it through the individual brilliance of, Jason Tadi or Viktor running all over the place in creating or scoring, like he did in the first 5, 6, 7 games of the season.
Mm-hmm.
So it may be, and I think we could talk about Valor a little bit if we jump to the Valor game quickly, or sort of blend those games together a little bit. Because Valor, the other surprise result of the weekend, losing 3-2 to IA.
Yeah, they continue to surprise, or perhaps not surprise. I don't know anymore.
They had injury problems. Jonathan Ingi went off injured. They were missing some players already, Gylfi and Aron, but they started that game really well. Going ahead, and looked like they were gonna steamroll IA. But they've done that. This is sort of the story of their season and the story of Breiðablik season a little bit. Like when they look good, they look better than they look like they are a step above. The rest of the everything below the bottom 3,
Mm-hmm.
and even sometimes a step above some of the top 3 teams.
Yeah, clearly.
But then they have games or periods in games where they fall off, like Valur did after the first goal, or Breiðablik did again against basically the whole game against FO, where they just don't. They fall too much back. They're trying a lot of long balls. Maybe I think just falling too much back is the main thing how I see it, where that suits teams like IA and this weekend against FO, sitting back, absorbing the pressure, and then hitting them on the counter. Whereas like a Valur, full throttle Valur should be able to walk over both those teams. The same with the Breiðablik that we saw last season, should and would be able to walk over both those teams. But when they fall back like this, they're not as decisive as Víkingur on their best day.
No, why do you think they're falling back like this? Do you think it's just the injuries in this case, or the lineup they have and the way that they played it, they really shouldn't be doing that, or I don't know, are they afraid maybe, or perhaps the opposite, maybe they're a little bit too confident in themselves, think that they're just going to be able to walk the game, so they put in less effort, or what do we think?
Both those teams have the depth. I mean, you've seen it from, let's not jump too much into Fram, but like if we say like another team such as Fram, they've struggled. Teams like that have struggled. Fram, Vestri, even KR, HK. These teams have struggled as soon as they lose 1, 2, 3 players. Of course, it's harder without Gylfi, without Aron, without Isak, without these players. But these are both teams that have spent a lot of money to do well in the league in Europe, and they have the squad to compete with that. And at that point, maybe becomes a coaching issue where like they should understand that this is not just through these 5 guys that we're playing. This is the way we are playing. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't really matter who's there, whether your name is Gylfi or Birkir or Jonathan or Tryggvi. This is the game we're playing, and this is the way we're playing. And that's a bit like how Víkingur do it. They rotated. We'll go into it later, but they can rotate 4 or 5 guys and win the game. Maybe not superbly. Maybe they don't look super great, but they can do it, and that's what. But it's a bit unfair. It's the same thing we were talking about with KR. They're building this team. Valur is, Ragnar has had a bit of time to do this now. I think this season will be, I'm not saying his final chance, but he needs to push Víkingur all the way. He needs to do better in Europe. I think those are the 2 benchmarks that he needs to go up to. Breiðablik, it's his first year in the job after a very intense period with Oscar. So I think give him a bit of chance. But yeah. It seems like it's a bit of a coaching issue, maybe, that they lack of plan B.
Yeah, I mean, at this point with Valur, it feels like they should have gotten their act together in some capacity, and the way that they've spent money and the hype around them, you would maybe expect them to be, not in 3rd place at this point. Mm. But that's football, as they say. IA, on the other hand, are ever since I talked them down a little bit a few weeks ago. They've been on the warpath and are adamant in trying to prove me wrong.
Yeah, 5 points off Valur with a game in hand. They have lost one in the last 5 games. Yeah, I mean, they heard you. They're coming for you.
I mean, I'm happy to see it. It's good. It's good to see another team step up like this. And I guess FO, you could say that they're stepping up. I mean, they're on the same number of points. But I guess the feel about that isn't maybe the same. Halldór the Breiðablik coach didn't really heap FA with any praise after the game. Just said that the game overall lacked quality, whereas Heimir, the FA coach, considered it their best defensive performance of the summer. So I guess that's maybe a matter of perspective there. But, I mean, maybe FA could keep going. I don't know. It feels like there's a little more je ne sais quoi about IA, but maybe we're overlooking FA a little bit in this.
I mean, FA were the fourth team a few weeks ago, and then they just went on this run where they didn't win for like a month or something like that, more than a month.
Yeah.
So they just need to be a bit more consistent, and that's almost everyone below. I mean, everyone apart from Víkingur, I guess, but definitely everyone below the top three. They're rotating around so much. And we are in second half of the season. It's up to these teams to really prove that if they want to, get into Europe, if they want to challenge the top teams, they need to gather the points now, because it's going to be a long. We still it's second half of the season, but then we're going into the split half where they're going to be playing the top teams every week.
Yeah.
So it's up to IA to prove that they can consistently do it. But they're doing exactly what they want to do. They're being very quiet. Every interview with them is, we have our own objectives. We're not going to advertise them. Mm-hmm. So they're not going around saying we're going to win the league or we're going to get into Europe or anything like that. But I think quietly they can see that they can stand up to almost any, they can stand up to any team in the league. They had a right go at Víkingur not that long ago. But like we spoke about, I think last week, Árni has been fantastic in goal. Victor has been scoring the goals up front. It's not to say the other players aren't performing, not at all. There's some really good performances in between those guys, but I think we need to see a bit more goals from some other people, like we saw this weekend.
But if we're going to discuss the middle pack and consistency, etc., and if we just compare Dia and FO, who are on the same number of points, then perhaps we should compare Fram and Stjarnan, who are also on the same number of points, and maybe not quite the same vibe around those two teams either.
No, it's nobody. I don't think anyone really knows what Stjarnan are. It's really hard to know what they're doing. Fram, I think it's very easy to see. Fram are a very solid team that on their day can stand up to most teams. They have players like. Oliver has had a pretty decent season in goal. Kyle, Fredji, Guðmundur Mag, and all these players, they have a really solid team. Kenny Chopart's come into it really, really well. Mm-hmm. But then they have these injuries, these runs of form where they struggle a little bit, and they hadn't won for a while before they beat Vestri. So people know that they're a solid, decent team around mid-table, but then maybe a struggle when they lose their key players. Stjarnan aren't really missing that many players, but it's just they're missing this. I think last season, they weren't perfect, but every time you faced them, they were just this swarm of bees that came at you, and then sometimes you could run out of that swarm and get a goal against them, but you could never really relax against them. But now it seems like it's a bit. There's too many spaces. Olivalur has played really well at right back, but there is so many times when people are running behind him. That seems like a bit, and they're a very, very young team, but that seems like a bit of a coaching issue. Not to say that, Jökull should go or anything like that, but that seems like something where they need to just solidify and need to get some of these spaces locked up and try to build a little bit more sensibly. Because, I think you touched on it a few times as well. The goals they score are nice, but it's very chaotic.
Yeah, it was a lot of sort of individual pseudo brilliance, but it was always coming from a state of panic. Was how it felt watching them. They managed to get off the passes or the final touch on the ball or whatever, managed to be pretty good, but you were holding your breath the whole way getting there. Yeah,
exactly. So you have no idea what they're going to do, and I think it shows a little bit. They've conceded 28 goals this season, which is tied for third worst in the league.
It puts them solidly in the company of the bottom teams in terms of goals conceded.
But then they've scored 24, which is puts them in the company of that's as many as EF scored. So it's
so a bit of chaos.
Yeah, exactly. So those teams are very much they're sort of the way you look at them, like you said, they're a bit different moods around. And then if we go to the next 3, I guess, KR, HK, KR.
I mean, if we go to the next 5, then what happened in this past round kind of just was an exercise in evening that whole thing out and making it a little bit more chaotic, I guess, right? KR dropping points against Fylkir. I'll allow myself to phrase it that way. Fylkir picking up a point against KR. KR beating HK to sort of tighten that up, and then Vestri losing. So there's like a 5-point gap there, or a 5-point spread between these bottom 5 teams at this point.
And then it's just a matter of who can run into a bit of form, like KR maybe looked like they're doing. They played really well against HK. But then towards the end, they could have lost it. HK had a real go at them, and KR were a little bit lucky not to lose that down to a draw. And then Fylkir, like we said, Fylkir and KR just, they're just not super great at the moment. But KR have a new manager, a new permanent manager now, Palmerad.
Yeah, like we touched on last week briefly. So not really. That's another thing, maybe just if we're going to discuss it. They get rid of their manager, Greg, in order to not really make any change.
Yeah, that's always the thing.
I mean, you have the assistant stepping up, like...
I mean, that's always the thing with these assistant... I don't know, it's really hard to know with these assistant hires. Like, you had it with Stjarnan last year, where you fired August and brought in Jökull, who was the assistant back then, and it felt a bit pointless, because, August had a tough start to the season. He hadn't really done anything wrong, and then you had Jökull step in and just be magnificent for them. But yeah, I mean, Palme has been there for a while, both as a player and then the sort of backroom staff and director and all these sort of things. Was coaching the women's team for a little bit earlier in the season, and so he's not a new face. And then they hire Ragnar as the assistant, also until the end of the season. He's a former player as well. He was the manager of Leiknir. He quit earlier this season after sort of a hard start to the season. So he's a little bit of a new face. Maybe going to bring in some new ideas. So that's good, at least, that they're bringing someone else to help him that's not just been there for years and years and years.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. But I mean, according to our listeners, there was a bit of a split on Twitter. Then 58-ish percent, 58.3% of listeners / fans said that KR were right in sacking Greg. 42% said no. But then everyone on Spotify said yes.
Yeah, maybe a bit more emphatic than I think either of us would have expected.
Yeah,
but he wasn't. There is definitely a part of the fans of KR that did want him to go. I think it would be wrong to suggest otherwise, that he was universally beloved. So it makes sense that there is some.
Yeah, I mean, it's always like that when the results aren't there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, exactly. It wasn't. I don't think anyone would have been beloved with KR in that position. But yeah.
No, but I mean, now it's been very much solidified that there's no new manager bounce that has happened for KR. This, sacking your manager and then drawing against the team that's bottom of the league is a bad look. And coupled with just this general lack of direction from the team, I remain unimpressed.
Fylkir did get a point and KR dropped the points, but I felt it's also very much their fault. They had some good moments, 2 good goals by Kristján Flóki, but yeah, they let them into this game. They have the Chaos Merchants in Stjarnan next, so I mean, will KR win? It's impossible to predict.
That's how it's going to go. It's going to be 8-8. Absolute madness.
And then Fram away, Breiðablik away, KR at home. Like Fram, maybe getting into form, Breiðablik needing some points, KR getting into form again. Like this could be 4 games without a win. Like there is definitely a world where that exists, where KR go the next 4 games without a win. And we're in August. We're close to the relegation spot. But yeah, we'll see. See what Palme has up his sleeve.
Yeah, I mean, they're also 3 points off 6th.
Yeah, exactly. But that's this whole league, right? Like you get 2 wins and you're and you're in fifth or you're in 11th or it's but it is starting to split a little bit. Like if IA has been doing well recently, so it's maybe not, it won't be like 5 teams in the middle. Maybe it'll just be 1 or 2 teams pulling away with the top 3, and then you have the middle and the bottom. But
how much money would you put on if you had to make a bet to say that at the split the table would split as it currently is?
So
with Stjarnan, KR, HK not making it.
I mean, that there's definitely a chance that happening. Like I'm not putting any money that it has any relation to Stjarnan at the moment. They could win the league for all I know. I refuse to put any money on the fortune of Stjarnan.
Yeah,
but the rest is I would not be surprised if the rest, like I think Fram at this very moment Fram and Stjarnan are the ones that are a bit more, they could switch places, but the rest I don't think anyone would be super. You would have a big case to complain about this split.
No, it's starting to seem like it's like Fram and Stjarnan duking it out. FH potentially, if they go on a poor run of form again, something could happen. But
then maybe the transfer window changes some of that. Maybe we'll see if there is some movement when it opens in a few weeks.
Yeah, much sadness possibly for me if these rumors of Benoni to Utrecht are real. KR, if we're just going to continue there's a couple of outgoing players, both Benoni and Ayriat, rumored to maybe be on the way out, going abroad. And then the players coming in, Julius Már from Fjölnir and Jakob Gunnar from Völsungur. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, we can't, we live in Denmark, so we can't watch these lower league games, but I mean, they're definitely the talk of the town, those two. Jakob Gunnar is a teenager with, I think already has like 8 goals or something in the second division. It's huge shoes to be filling in if they're replacing Ayriat and Benoni.
But I'm happy to see Benoni going abroad going back abroad. I mean, he was in Italy as a kid, so it would be, I mean, he deserves it from my point of view. But talk of transfer, I guess the big rumor is Jasundade, right? Yeah,
being linked to, there's a lot of talk that he was kind of, he was being linked to the other teams in Iceland, which I always thought would be to be honest, to your point with Benoni, it's a bit of a shame if he went to Víkingur or KR. Mm-hmm. Would love to see him at KR. But it would be a shame. He's like, on his day, he is maybe the best player in this league, and I would love to see him abroad. But then he was linked to Grimsby. Yeah,
the old town we have beef with, as us, or they have beef with us.
Do they?
Yeah, if we're going to go back to the COD wars of yore between Iceland and the UK, where there was a man from Grimsby who was seriously wounded, one of very few casualties in this, and it sort of, this COD war apparently led to some very specific decline in the industry there in Grimsby, the fishery sort of thing. So I see that they're now in return poaching our talent.
Or we're sending Yasun as a spy to take them down.
Or yeah, one or the other. But you think Grimsby is the sort of level he should be aiming at?
On paper, League 2 seems like a low level, but yeah, is it that much lower than the Norwegian First Division or something like that, where a lot of Icelandic players have been going straight from Besta Pod?
Oh, probably not.
Most likely not. Move to England. There's a lot of cameras, a lot of people watching. So if he can make some waves, I think that's a very good starting point from him. Yeah. Either to stay, either to get them promoted, or push on from there. I mean, he's not old, but he's 24, so he's not Benoni, he's not a teenager anymore. So he needs to make sure that's the right move. Mm-hmm. It would be a shame if he goes out, spends a year or two on the bench, or not really hitting it off.
Yeah, maybe an opportunity to play a little bit more for the national team. He has 5 caps total And you know how it is when an Icelander moves abroad, it absolutely skyrockets your chances of making the national team.
Yeah, it would definitely help. And I mean, we had lower league English players playing in the lower leagues of England make it pretty big in the national team. Cowrie playing for Plymouth when he was eating international strikers alive, playing for Plymouth. So there's precedent.
Then there's two other sort of transfer rumors. There's Guðmundur Andri, and then there's Breki Baldursson. The second of whom is on trial at Esbjerg. Still a teenager, but been at Fram for a little bit. Nice to see the teenagers go abroad, get more experience, more abroad, just more higher level football under their belt. So it's what you want for just Icelandic football in general, I think.
And then Guðmundur Andri, huge talent when he came through at KR a few years ago. Went to Norway, didn't really click for him, and then he came back to Iceland, where some people have been saying that it's been a bit of a disappointment to see him, how he's played for Valur and the Besta Pod so far. It's being linked to Víkingur. They've notified Valur that they're speaking to him, because you need to tell the clubs when you start negotiating with players who are out of contract after the season. I definitely think that Arnar could get him up and running. Be fun to see. And then if we talk about talented segue, so we asked about the highlights of the first half of the season, and a big theme of that was Gylfi. Elmar, one of our fans, said, the arrival of Gylfi Sigurðsson and how he's elevated Valur both on and off the pitch. More people show the club and league more interest because of him. And then there was announced the Besta Pod account announced that the statistical team of the first half of the season, and Gylfi was there along with two of his Valur teammates, Jonathan Ingi and Patrick Pedersen. I mean, Gylfi is on his day the best player in this league. I think saying otherwise would be ridiculous.
Yeah,
three Valur players, including Gylfi, as like the best players on form in the first half of the league. Does that make sense?
I don't know. I mean, we always kind of leave them out of the conversations, maybe too much when we're awarding our stars and whatnot.
Yeah, for sure.
The sort of suffering from success thing. But yeah, whether they should be making up 3 out of 11 players based on form, not sure. One player from Víkingur, Oliver Egroth, and two Breiðablik players, Viktor Karl and Damir. 2 EA players. I mean, Árni, it's clear, right?
With your eyeballs and statistical wise, he's definitely impressed.
Then there's Fredji from Fram, Ole Valur from Stjarnan, and Kjartan Kári from FH.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good team. It's a team that, I mean, it's none of these players you can say like, oh, they definitely have been terrible this season, they don't deserve to be there. But it's a bit hard to say that, player like Viktor Jónsson, for example, isn't there. Daniel Djuric has been fantastic so far.
Yeah, but you know how these teams are. No one ever truly agrees with them when these things come out, and when they're statistics-based teams, right? These are, then some of it, like Gylfi, it's going to be a little bit inflated. Probably people are going to be likely to give him slightly higher scores. But I mean, like you said, it's a solid team. You can't argue that it's not.
No, this team would definitely win the league. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
But I mean, we can at least make it up to Danny Djuric a little bit by awarding him a Player of the Round star.
Yeah, for sure. It's a little bit cheating because he's played 2 games.
Yeah.
But, this is just how the summer is with these cup games and Europe and everything coming up. It's going to be a bit messy over the next few weeks. So 3 assists and 2 shots against the post against Stjarnan, and then following that up with a goal against Fram, where maybe the celebration was the highlight of it.
Yeah, it was just served as suspension for throwing a water bottle, and then mimicked throwing a water bottle as his celebration. You gotta love stuff like this. It's classic. It's a la Rooney's boxing celebration and Robbie Fowler's snorting celebration. Although maybe that one was a little bit more iconic.
And Craig Bellamy as well with the swinging of the golf club when he was a...
Yeah. You love these things. That's good. I like to see them.
Yeah, I mean, remember them after all these years, so it's...
Exactly.
No, he's... So he didn't make the first half of the team of the first half, but he got a star from us, and in the end, which one would you rather have?
Exactly. A man who is in the team and also getting a star is our good friend Fred for his performance against Vestri, as well as his performance against Víkingur.
Yeah, ran the game in both games. We didn't touch much upon the game from last night, but Víkingur just sort of got the job done against a very feisty Fram, very much led by Fredji. On another day, maybe they could have gotten a draw or maybe even a win. But so really, really well done, and then a fantastic work against Vestri as well to secure their first win in a while. So he will, like we've said many times, will be key.
Yeah.
In Fram if they want to try to get top half finish. And then the last one, I think it's hard. There's a lot of players. Kawa maybe isn't getting the recognition they deserve this week. They did really well against Hauko. FO, with that great win against Breiðablik, but we decided to give it to an EA player, Steinar Thorsteinsson.
Yeah, for his last minute goal. I mean, you mentioned before recording Viktor Jónsson as well being an option for EA for the star. I mean, Steinar scored the last minute goal to win them the game, but Viktor had 2 assists. So there's a world in which they split the star between them.
Yeah, and then Johan as well, like played a really good game covering at centre back towards the end, and just being huge cog in this team. I think it was very much a team effort, but so we could give it to EA as a whole, but we'll give it to Steinar for that insane goal.
Yeah,
to win it.
Absolutely. Well done, boys. And if we look ahead at the games that are, coming up over the weekend, Kaustjarnan, which we mentioned, nobody knows how that's going to go. That'll be something crazy.
8-8.
Yeah, 8-8 or something. Valur Fylkir. Valur should be winning that one. It'd be fun to see Fylkir take them. Wouldn't put my money on it though. Vestri playing Breiðablik at home. I would like to see Vestri get a little bit of joy at home, but against Breiðablik, again, tough sell.
Yeah, they're struggling a little bit.
Yeah. Then it's time for EA to really show that they can make like big boys and beat the guys that are far below them in playing Hauko. And then FH trying to do the same. So it's a lot of the big boys against slightly smaller boys this time around. And then you have Kaustjarnan. And then there's also some cup games going on in the meantime, both of which are represented fully by Besta Deildin teams. So Kawa are hosting Valur and Víkingur hosting Stjarnan. I guess the stats would say that it's going to be the boring final of Víkingur Valur, but we can hope for some upsets.
Kawa, I think, is very much going for this cup run again, like they did last season. This is, I think they understand that. They might pull into the top half, but I think Europe is a bit too big of a bite. So the cup is their last hurrah. So they will not be going down without a fight against Valur.
No, and Stjarnan, you never know what you're gonna get. So those are on Tuesday and Wednesday, those 2 games. And then next week we will also probably be discussing the Champions League qualification games that are starting Tuesday next week, so on the 8th, 9th something of July.
Yeah, and the Conference League starts on Thursday, I think, as well. So yeah,
clearly plenty of things to look forward to, plenty of things to keep your eyes upon. We will discuss it all in the near future. Thank you for listening, and see you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.